Welcome, and in today's video we're going to be talking about how to reinforce and go and move in a direction towards certainty in times of uncertainty. Welcome to my channel. If this is your first time here, welcome. If you're a returning viewer and supporter, welcome as well. This is a video and part of doing this in order to change the world, in order to quite literally make the world a better place when it comes to consciousness, when it comes to awareness, when it comes to things that everyone experiences in life and in the lives that we are experiencing. So that is why I am making this video, partly why. There are other reasons that I won't go into, but for sure a main motivation is to change the world, change the reality that we're in, and have a beneficial effect, have a positive effect on the reality that we're in order to put in that work, regardless if that is mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. Regardless of what that work may be, it's putting in that work regardless, even if things are uncertain at times, even if you're not quite sure where you're heading sometimes, even if you're not quite sure what's going on sometimes, even if you're not quite sure where you're going to be at certain times, or how you're going to do this in certain times. How are you going to be certain in uncertain times? And this is going to be why, and not just why, but how you can reinforce and enforce and move towards certainty in times of uncertainty. Because I'll tell you that I even myself experience times of uncertainty. There's times that I am not necessarily sure how things are going to play out, and part of that is realizing that, and realizing when I am in this situation of, let's say, being in uncertainty or whatnot, realizing the steps and the moves that I have to make in order to move towards certainty and to move towards, let's say, more clear times, or more certain times. For sure, you're never going to be certain for sure what's going to happen, because things just happen. Nothing is set in stone, and things happen throughout time, and that there's one thing that is constant, and that is for sure that there's change that is constant. And that's why you're able to move from uncertainty to certainty on certain things, because you can make that change. Change is always constant, so you're always going to be working and changing in that way. And let's make sure that we're changing in favor of ourselves, in favor of the paths and the lives that we live, in favor of the world that we are creating and the world that we exist in, whether that be mentally, emotionally, spiritually, or physically. Moving to more certain times out of uncertainty. And being in that uncertain time can help you to move into more stabler times, move into more thoughtful times, more, let's say, more structured or more beneficial spaces physically that you can move into, more better resonating emotional states of being that are more stable, that are geared towards your path in your life. And especially moving on to a spiritual plane of existence that's having a certain purpose played out, that is not, I'm uncertain, there's no faith there, but you have that faith, moving towards that certainty and that faith and that just knowing what is true, and being able to move more in that direction. So let's talk about mentally moving from being mentally uncertain to being mentally certain about things. This could have to do with, let's say, there's something that you're not quite sure that you know about, or that you think that you need to continuously learn, or that you need to perfect, or that you have learned and you're not quite learned it all the way or not. And you're uncertain, as if I can mentally be successful, or I can mentally carry myself in that mental state of being in order to be successful in whatever I'm dealing with, whatever either uncertain times I'm dealing with, challenging times that I'm dealing with. Being able to mentally recognize that is your first step in moving towards more certain times. Realizing that, okay, you can put in that mental time, you can put in that mental steps and those mental energy of working through it and learning, whether that be learning yourself, learning with others, or learning from others, because everyone has a perspective that they can share and each one can teach one. We all can learn from each other, and in that way we can more advance and we can move more towards knowing, more towards certainty, moving towards knowing things that are happening, knowing things that we can do. So if there's something that you can't mentally, you're uncertain about, then there's no problem with that, because you're going to be able to, as soon as you realize, okay, I'm mentally uncertain about how this might play out, I'm uncertain about how, or maybe my ability to mentally do this, well, that's for sure moving you into a more space of being mentally certain about it. Just thinking about that and having that thought form in your mental state of being of, I'm actually moving towards being more certain about it, just because I've gotten to sense the uncertainty. And once you're aware of that, you're consciously aware of that uncertainty, now you can move into mentally learning about it, mentally becoming inept to it, mentally becoming adept to it, and mentally becoming more involved to where you can move yourself towards being mentally certain, being mentally knowledgeable about what you need to be mentally knowledgeable about, having that mental form that you need to, carrying out through, whether it be a physical circumstance that you're in, whether that be a feeling, your emotional state of being that you find yourself in that you need to work out through, or whether that may be a spiritual coincidence or a spiritual challenge that you're dealing with. You will get through that. You will move towards more certain times by putting in that work and consistently being aware of this, and therefore you will not be unaware and being in those certain times. So mentally you can do that work and put in that work, and just thinking of that's going to structure your mental forms in order to help you move more towards certainty, help you move in a space that is more, you're more willing to get done what you need to get done when it comes to mentally. You're going to be more mentally able to ascertain and be certain about, okay, I think this. Whether your thinking is right or wrong, or more geared to the situation that you're in, is going to be how certain are you on this? Are you certain or are you uncertain? Are you still experiencing uncertainty? And if you are still experiencing uncertainty when it comes to mentally, realizing that mentally you have the power to gear towards and go towards and move towards a more mentally certain space, a more mentally stable space, a more mentally geared space towards what it is that you need to do in order to be successful. When it comes to the mental state of being. And if you think that you're in a space of uncertainty and it has to do with your actions, and you realize that your actions are actually affecting your mental state of being, and you're leaving it into a space of, and are leading it and leaving you in a space of mental uncertainty, then you know right then and there, that what you need to do in order to benefit your mental state of being, in order to move towards more certain, more stabler times. And when it comes to physically being in uncertain times, maybe there are things that you have planned coming out, or things that you coming out into your possible future experiences that you're uncertain about. You don't think that you're ready for or whatnot. If that's the case, then you can, like I've said, mentally, you can physically start putting in that work immediately. Therefore, you're already going to be pushing yourself into a space, into a frequency vibration of, I'm going to take care of this situation, even though it may be uncertain at times, or uncertain in this time, or it was uncertain before. I'm moving towards more certain times, and certain times of knowing where I should be, certain times of knowing this is the right thing to do when it comes to anything that you're doing, when it comes to physically, any action that you're doing that you're uncertain about, you will now come to being more certain about. And if it is a situation where, okay, you're uncertain about this, just realize You gotta physically stay protected no matter what in order to not let that situation outweigh your efforts that you physically put in. And your efforts that you physically put in are gonna be automatically putting in that work, as long as it's geared toward that situation, that scenario, that person, place, or thing, in order to move towards being more certain, being sure about what you're doing. This action is going to cause this effect. If I go ahead and I go to this place, I'm going to get this out of it. I'm going to this place with the knowledge that I need. I'm going to this place with the understanding, with the physical strength to be able to deal with anything that comes my way, with the physical ability to ascertain any issues that come my way, ascertain and get through and move towards more certain times when it comes to any obstacles or challenges that you may be dealing with. Regardless what comes into your physical existence, moving into more certain times and more certain spaces that are right for you are going to benefit you when it comes to your physical state of being. And when it comes to staying physically protected, there's things that I, for myself, are going to need to do in the next month in order to be successful, in order to move into a more certain times. More certain times can be, let's say, being financially stable, let's say being mentally sound, let's say being emotionally fulfilled, or in this case, a success that will lead into expanding and being able to spiritually expand and gain more knowledge and gain more power in that way, and power in a way of being able to do more that you can do in the existence. Just being able to do that is going to be a beneficial thing, and that's because right now in the space that I'm in, there are certain things that are uncertain about that. So it is my duty to move towards, put in that work more towards certainty, more towards, okay, this is what I need to in order to handle myself in this situation. This is the way that I need to act. This is the space that I need to be in. These are the physical actions that I need to take and put forward in order to move into more certain times. And we're gonna make it, that's for sure. And when it comes to emotionally, if you're ever experiencing emotional uncertainty, let's say you have an action that you're taking part in, or something's going on around you that's making you feel a certain way, you can detach from that and you can move towards more certain times when it comes to emotionally. And being able to be certain about things is about listening to purely what your emotional state of being is telling you, purely what is your emotional intuitive nature telling you about the situation. Listen to that, and if it's right and it's sound with all other states of beings, and that you can confirm that, especially with your spiritual perspective, and be able to tell that, hey, this comes from somewhere, this is not just something that's happening surface level, there's actually a deeper rooted meaning behind it, so that therefore you can confirm that it's the truth and not just something like an illusion or whatnot. You may feel, oh, I'm not ready for that. I don't feel like I'm ready for that. I don't feel like I have to know what I do need to know in order to be certain about something. Things are up in the air when it comes emotionally. I'm not sure how I quite feel about this yet. Well, moving and being aware of that uncertainty will automatically have that awareness and that consciousness and give you that ability. You do have to take action on it, but give you the ability to now move into more certain times, being able to realize, okay, I feel this way about this thing. I am for sure about this thing, rather than before I didn't know how I felt about this or whatnot. No, now you can be sure. Now you can reinforce that action, reinforce that emotional state of being, or whatever that emotional response was, and be able to confirm it and say, hey, right now maybe I don't need to listen to that feeling or whatnot, or be aware of that feeling. Now I need to mentally use my state of being to move towards more certainty. I don't need to think about that feeling right now. I need to physically put myself into a physical space that is right to me in order to now move towards more certain times. I need to spiritually value my spiritual system and be moving towards times of spiritual certainty, not spiritual uncertainty, where you don't know, you're either here nor you're there, and you don't know if you're coming and you don't know if you're going when it comes to spiritually. Whether that be oh, I can't do this right now, I just don't feel good or whatnot, or I'm not feeling certain about that, then there's for sure things that you can do in order to put in that work in order to be more certain about that. Just having that emotional awareness is going to, like I said, you still have to put in the work to be there, but it's going to be able to at least give you that awareness of, okay, there is some uncertainty going on here. Let's move into more certainty. Let's move into more certainty in terms of how are we going to be successful, whether that be mentally, emotionally, spiritually, or physically, whatever it may be. Lastly, when it comes to, and not least, we come to spiritually, being spiritually uncertain about things. This can happen if you are involved in things that are not necessarily in your view or in your perspective right by means of your own spiritual path in life. And there's one thing to be said, that there's sacrifices to be made if, in terms that the path that you are on, the path that you need to be in life, you have to do certain things in order to get to a certain space. You have to do certain things, sacrifice certain things in order to, let's say, mentally get into that mental form. Whether that be, oh, you have to learn something, you have to go and develop this yourself and learn it yourself, get the hands-on experience in order to have the wisdom about it and be able to mentally deal with that, whatever spiritual existence that you are in or thing that you're dealing with. You have to realize at the end of the day, you're going to be the spirit that is in that body experiencing that situation. Whether that be something, let's say physical, that you are in a space where you need to be more spiritually aware, you need to use your spiritual intuition, your spiritual awareness that you have as you, then that's something that you need to prioritize. When it comes to, let's say, emotionally, being aware of how you feel and your intuitive nature, and realizing that if you have to go through something difficult, something that's emotionally challenging, something that may have uncertainty in it, through that you will gain spiritual knowledge, spiritual knowing, spiritual awareness, and wiseness over that situation, and being able to, regardless of what's happening mentally, regardless of what's happening physically, emotionally. Like I said, sometimes sacrifices have to be made in order to find ourselves in a better state of being. And going through that is putting in that work, and on the other side, you will reach times and spaces of more certainty when it comes to mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. That's it for this one.